Well, hello. Guys, I'm so bored. I have no one to laugh at, no one to laugh at me, no one to tell all my funny jokes to. So just bear with me. I hope that you're having a good day. I hope that you have chapter 3 of Hiroshima finished. If not, you should stop this video right now and go finish that. You can watch it or you can follow along with those YouTube links for chapter 3 audiobook on YouTube, and you have the PDF that you can follow along and read also. So hopefully you've done that. If you have done that, I'm going to go through the study guide with you, and I need to make sure that we just jump right in and get started with that so that we have enough time in this video, because I think I only have 15 minutes. So hopefully you have your study guide handy. If not, you need to pause this and go get that out, your study guide and your character chart. And obviously, as I'm going through this, if you want to pause it at any point in time, you can. After this, you're going to go take a quiz. It's 15 questions. It's multiple choice. If you listen to this video and you fill out your study guide, you will do fine. If you don't, you're probably going to struggle a little bit. So make sure that you fill this out and that you also have your study guide handy when you go to take that quiz, because you can use it. So why not? All right. So first of all, in chapter 3 takes us through obviously, we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, and this goes through August 15th. So the majority of the chapter is the first 3 days after the bomb, from August 6th to August 9th, and then at the end, it kind of talks about what's going on the 15th, so a little bit over a week after the bomb is dropped. So in the immediate days, we'll go ahead and get started with number 1. It says, what announcement does the young officer make as they're going through? There's a ship that goes through on the river, and this officer is telling the people to be patient because the naval hospital ship is on its way to you. That never happened. I don't know if he was lying or if it was supposed to come, but it never did. So the country kind of let its people down by it never sent its military to help its people. Mr. Tanimoto became sickened in the sands pit because he had helped all of these people near the river, and he went to help down to reach this woman up to her feet. And because of the burns on her skin, when he grabbed her hands to help her up, her skin just slipped off in huge glove-like pieces because of the burns, and that made Mr. Tanimoto sick to his stomach, obviously. But the characters keep talking about how they've seen so much death and so much injury that they're almost like numb to seeing blood and seeing, just different things, like gruesome things. But this, obviously took a toll on Mr. Tanimoto. Dr. Fuji's injuries, he is badly injured. Like, he wants to be helping other people, but he can't because he's got all of these different fractures and bruises. He's got really deep cuts on his chin and his back and his legs. He has a couple broken ribs as well. So he's injured, so he's trying to find places to rest. He goes home to his parents' house, and that house ends up getting washed away by a landslide. So he has to move from his parents' house to a friend's house to rest. So he stays there for a while, for the majority, or for all of chapter 3, actually, and he just is resting to take care of his injuries. Dr. Sasaki is, again, the only uninjured hospital. As the days go on, more doctors are coming into the hospital, more doctors and more nurses to help. But right now there's 10,000 people that have come to the hospital, and Dr. Sasaki is the only doctor. He still doesn't really realize what's going on, so he just keeps working and working, still thinking that it's like an isolated incident, still thinking that his hospital is the only hospital that's hit. So he just keeps going, and he works for 3 straight days just helping people. He gets 1 hour's long nap that he finds this secluded place in the hospital to rest. And within an hour, people are finding him and waking him up and being like, what are you doing? You should be helping us, doctor, and they're getting very angry with him. And so then he goes right back to work. So he gets 1 hour sleep in 3 days. Number 5, why do officers draw their swords on Father Kleinsorg? Remember, Father Kleinsorg is German. He's not Japanese. He was relocated to Japan, to Hiroshima, to, uh, be a priest. So he's speaking German and to some of his colleagues, and the Japanese people, obviously they're experiencing a lot of xenophobia just based on, what's been going on. And so they're, scared of Father Kleinsorg. So they immediately draw their swords and act like they're going to kill him. But, obviously that quickly dissipates. Nothing comes of that. What does Mrs. Saki say to her companions? Nothing. They're all so miserable. There's still 3 of them under that piece of like lean-to corrugated iron, like little shack that was made for them, and they're all just in so much pain and so miserable that they don't even speak to each other. Mr. Tanimoto, what happened to the people? So he was helping these people and he was putting them on our riverbank until boats could come and take them to safety. But he went to bed at night thinking that, he had saved these people, but he didn't put them high enough up on the riverbank. So when he woke up in the morning, he saw that the tide had come in and drowned all of them, and their bodies were floating in the river. So obviously that was, Mr. Tanimoto can't really catch a break. He tried helping that woman up, and then the skin of her hand slipped off. These people are dead. He's really trying to help people. He's probably the character at this point that's trying the most to help others, and it's not working out. His heart is in a good place, but it's not working out. According to the U.S., how powerful was the bomb dropped on Hiroshima? So like pretty much immediately, I think it was like 16 hours after we dropped the bomb on Hiroshima, President Truman gave an address to the American people. And he started the address by saying, quote, more power than 20,000 tons of TNT. It had more than 2,000 times the blast power of the British Grand Slam, which is the largest bomb ever used yet in the history of warfare. He said, they've been repaid tenfold for what they did to us at Pearl Harbor. So people are starting to find out that this bomb is atomic, but that's never happened before. We've never used that before. So people still don't even really understand exactly what was happening. Why won't military doctors leave the East Parade Ground and help people in Asano Park? So this is what we were talking about, how when you have, before we started reading the book, about how when you have a mass casualty like this, or, just different things, even like what's going on right now in Italy, people were talking about how doctors were having to make these decisions with people infected with the coronavirus. There are people that eventually are surely going to die. And in cases like that, you have to save as many lives as possible. So you have to start making really tough decisions. And, unfortunately, this is happening in our world like today. And that's what was happening in that parade ground, where Mr. Tanimoto approached the doctor and was really upset with him because he's like, these people are dying and you need to come help them. And the doctor finally snaps and is like, we can't waste our time. Those people are going to die. I'm better off here helping these injured people. What gruesome discovery does Father Kleinsorg make? Well, he's helping people. He's bringing people water, and he finds this group of like 20 soldiers with these horrible flash burns. So what he assumes is that when the bomb went off, these people were like looking, obviously directly into the direction that the bomb was exploding and directly into the light. And they got these terrible burns to their face. Their eyes were missing, like melted away, it said. Their lips are so swollen that they couldn't even open their lips enough to drink water. So Father Kleinsorg had to get these large pieces of grass and help them make a straw to drink. Who are the Katoka children? They are 2 children. They lost their mother when they're fleeing the fires of the city. Later in the chapter, Father Kleinsorg does help them find their mother, which is probably like the only good thing to come out of chapter 3. Father Kleinsorg feels this sudden urge to burst into tears because this woman gave him tea leaves to chew on so he wouldn't be so thirsty. And because he's German, remember, people are really like backing off from him and really uneasy around him, but she was like the first person to treat him with like this kindness and gentleness. And so he, almost burst into tears. He was really emotional about that. When Misasaki's friends find her alive, what do they tell her? This is kind of a bizarre point in chapter 3 because her friends come to find her and they're like, "Oh, you're alive. Well, we just came to tell you that your whole family is dead. When they were at the hospital helping your brother, that hospital is completely destroyed. They're dead." And then they just leave. They leave her. They don't even try to help her. They just leave her be. Really, really kind of bizarre, but that's, what happens. What do the doctors tell her, and what does the doctor in Hiroshima tell her? Basically, these men come and they put her on this ship, and the doctors are talking as she's in and out of consciousness, and the doctors are like, "Oh wow, her leg is really badly infected. It needs to be amputated in order for her to live." And then they're like, "Well, that's too bad because we don't have the stuff to do it." So then they put her on another naval ship, and those doctors say, "We can't help you because actually we can't, you don't need your leg to be amputated, and we only are a surgical ship, so you've got to go. We don't have enough room for you." So they're about to ship her back to Hiroshima, where she started, and they take her temperature and find out she has a really horrible temperature, which means she has an infection. So it doesn't make any sense what the doctors are telling her, but they let her stay, which surely saved her life. So gladly she gets to stay, but they put her outside on the dock of this ship and the sun is beaming down on her. It's hot, it's August, and she's got this compound fracture that's oozing infection. I mean, she's directly in the sun. That would be absolutely miserable. Strange discovery made at the hospital. One of the doctors goes into the basement and he finds that all the plates for the x-rays have been exposed because of the bomb. Remember, it's radioactive. The bomb is, and that's what happens when you take an x-ray. There's all that radiation, right? That's how the plates become exposed, is radiation. So they find that all of these x-ray plates have been basically used, which is kind of a crazy finding. Mr. Tanimoto is so uncomfortable at Asano Park because Mrs. Kamai, remember from the first chapter, with her dead baby in her arms, is still walking around 3 days later with that dead baby in her arms and begging Mr. Tanimoto to go find her husband so that he can say goodbye to this baby. And she refuses to cremate the child without her husband seeing it, and she won't stop staring at Mr. Tanimoto. The Nakamuras have gone. They just go to a chapel to rest because they're all sick. Dr. Fuji goes to the house of a friend to recover from his injuries, and according to the newspaper man that stopped by the novitiate, what caused the damage, he claims that there's this dust powder of magnesium that exploded when it got dropped from the planes and hit live wires throughout the city. It's just a rumor, and obviously, when something happens that people don't, exactly know what happened, rumors get started. Mr. Tanimoto reads to Mr. Tanaka. This is especially kind because Mr. Tanaka was the one that was spreading those horrible rumors about Mr. Tanimoto at the beginning of the book that could have gotten Mr. Tanimoto killed. Mr. Tanaka was saying that Tanimoto was a spy for the Americans, which was not true. And he ended up, Mr. Tanaka was dying, and Mr. Tanimoto was reading the Bible to him, which was obviously especially kind because Mr. Tanimoto could have said, no, I'm not doing that, buzz off. The doctor tells Mrs. Saki that he could not set the break in her leg, but he did try to drain the infection. So he put a tube in her infection. It was draining the pus and the infection out of the wound. Genshi Bakudan means original child bomb, and this is what the Japanese were calling the atomic bomb because it was the first of its kind. So that's how they came up with that name. Mrs. Nakamura discovers on her trip back to Hiroshima that all of her family is dead. Not her children. Her children are alive, but her mother, her brother, her sister, they're all dead. The hospital operation that deals with the dead and dying, disposal of the dead by decent cremation and enshrinement is a greater moral responsibility of the Japanese than adequate care of the living. So they had to do mass cremations and then put the remains in an envelope. And then what is the announcement that the Emperor of Japan makes on August 15th? That Japan has surrendered. So I'm going to run out of time. So this is your study guide. I'll do another video with the character chart.